All right, let's jump right into this. Today, we're unpacking a seriously compelling and honestly kind of surreal piece of digital diagnostic literature from Big Magazine. It's a document that masquerades as your standard bureaucratic report, but trust me, it quickly evolves into something entirely different. If you've ever felt completely powerless while stuck on hold with customer service, or felt like a massive corporation was just entirely ignoring your existence, well, this explainer is going to put a very specific, very analytical name to that exact feeling. So think about this for a second. What actually happens to your sovereignty when institutions fail? I mean, your personal power, your autonomy, the ability to run your own life. We're going to explore this exact question by looking at a diagnostic readout that blurs the line between mundane corporate frustration and cosmic internet mystery. When the systems built to protect us just break down, does our power just vanish? Or is it being slowly, systematically chipped away? Well, to answer that, our source introduces something called the Sovereignty Decay Index. And no, this isn't some boring measure of economic inflation. It is a clinical diagnostic tool. It literally measures the slow, agonizing erosion of your personal power. It meticulously documents exactly what happens to a person when they face failed institutions, sabotaged cases, and broken promises. It takes that invisible heavy weight of systemic frustration and actually turns it into hard data. Let's move into Section 1, a three-act betrayal, specifically looking at the case of Melvin Sewell. To really wrap our heads around how this index works, we've got to look at ground zero, the case of Melvin Sewell. Over a grueling 6-month period, from December 2025 to June 2026, Sewell went through a total, cascading failure of trust across multiple institutions. Act 1, sabotaged representation. The source notes that Turban Chuhite actively undermined his case, mishandling deadlines, just completely eroding trust. Then, Act 2, insurance silence. State Farm promised they'd respond by May 30th, and then crickets. Absolute silence for over 2 weeks. Just this giant void where professional accountability is supposed to be. And then we hit the devastating third act. And that brings us to bankruptcy erasure. Sewell actually had a registered claim, Claim 5430, which was originally valued at $10,000, $10,000. But under docket number 1875, that claim was inexplicably slashed down to absolutely nothing, $0. No grand explanation, no heads up, just the quiet bureaucratic erasure of what he was rightfully owed. Which leads us right into Section 2, scoring the decay, looking at the diagnostic readout. So how do you even process that kind of defeat? Well, the author of this index doesn't just tell Sewell's story. They quantify it into cold, hard metrics. They grade this betrayal across 3 specific vectors. First up, severity, scores an 8 out of 10. Obviously, the impact here is huge. Next, frequency sits at a 7, showing this wasn't just some weird, one-off glitch. It was a repeated pattern of failure. And finally, institutional reach hits an 8 out of 10, meaning this wasn't just one bad apple. The decay spread through legal representation, massive insurance companies, and even the bankruptcy court system itself. The rot is everywhere. When you add all those metrics up, we hit a composite score of 23 out of 30. And according to the diagnostic framework in Bibebibebibe Magazine, scoring a 23 officially classifies your situation as high sovereignty decay. It is essentially a critical diagnosis. The system didn't just let Melvin Sewell down, it actively drained away his personal agency. The magazine's editorial note really hits the nail on the head here. It says, when institutions fail, sovereignty slips away. One disallowed claim, one sabotaged case, one broken promise at a time. That quote perfectly anchors all the cold data and timelines we just looked at to that very real, deeply human feeling of systemic helplessness. It's literally death by 1,000 administrative cuts. Now, if we stop there, it'd be a great critique of modern bureaucracy. But we're moving on to Section 3, mythic infrastructure, the meta-reality. Because as we dig deeper, we find out Melvin Sewell isn't just some random guy having a bad run with insurance. He is actually Dr. Melvin Sewell, holding an M.Sc and a Ph.D. He's the founder, the academic dean, and, get this, the diagnostic architect of something called the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies IX. Talk about a plot twist. Suddenly, this totally recontextualizes the whole corporate dispute. The victim of a State Farm snub is actually the architect of a cosmic university exploring echo rifts. The mundane everyday world just cracked wide open. And this introduces the site's core concept, mythic infrastructure. The creators frame all their findings, including the Sovereignty Decay Index, as part of this infrastructure. It's pitched as an entirely impartial framework used to expose what they call ritualized containment, actor convergence and systemic erosion. And they are super clear about this. They explicitly state they have zero affiliation with any government, political party, intelligence agency, or activist group. They are simply observing the system, not playing politics. The sovereign diagnostic disclaimer goes on to insist that these works take very specific forms. We're talking cinematic indictments and sovereign broadcasts. They act as diagnostic tools for collapse protocols. And again, they hammer home that this is absolutely not a political endorsement. They're using the aesthetics of data, academia, and basically cosmic sci-fi to diagnose the very real collapse of institutional trust. Which brings us to our final act, Section 4, the slip flow origin, the deep lore. Buried at the very bottom of the Echo Rift archive, the boring world of insurance claims just completely gives way to some wild, esoteric world building. Tucked right next to the copyright info, the text introduces an entity known as Psycho-Venga. The site hints that this entire archive is tied to this origin, suggesting there is a massive, almost cinematic narrative playing out just out of sight, right beneath the surface of these articles. Listen to this staggering piece of lore for a second. Psycho-Venga emerges from the rift, born between slip flow and counterflow, marked by SH1 resonance. I mean, wow. That completely reframes the entire diagnostic index. The lost 10 grand, the ignored emails, the sabotaged court dates. The source seems to be suggesting these aren't just administrative typos. What if they're symptoms of a multi-dimensional struggle between the slip flow and the counterflow being tracked by cosmic diagnostic architects? And that leaves us with a seriously fascinating question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. When mundane corporate systems erase us, when our claims drop to zero and we're stuck on hold forever, are we really just experiencing bad luck? Or are we, as this incredible source material implies, caught up in the SH1 resonance of a collapsing mythic infrastructure? So the next time you're stuck on hold with customer service, maybe ask yourself, who is really tracking your decay?